Welcome to this introduction to Liquid Feedback. Liquid Feedback is an online system in which eligible participants can submit proposals, develop them collaboratively, and make collective decisions. These proposals can concern many different questions. They may relate to policy, organizational structures, design, internal procedures, resource allocation, or any other matter that the participating group is authorized to decide. Liquid Feedback does not moderate proposals based on their content. A proposal is not edited, removed, or restricted simply because of its subject matter or because someone disagrees with it. Intervention occurs only when the applicable rules have been violated. To understand how liquid feedback works, we first need to distinguish between two central concepts: issues and initiatives.
An issue is the overall question on which a decision must be made. An initiative is a specific proposal for answering that question. When a participant submits a proposal that does not belong to an existing issue, the new initiative automatically opens a new issue. When a suitable issue already exists, the participant can add an initiative to that issue. It then becomes an alternative to the proposals that have already been submitted. An issue can therefore contain one initiative or several competing initiatives. For example, an issue might concern how a particular process should be organized. One initiative might propose keeping the current process with a few adjustments. A second might propose replacing it entirely. A third might offer a compromise between the two. All three initiatives belong to the same issue because they address the same underlying question. This structure is important. Liquid feedback does not require participants to reduce every discussion to a simple choice between accepting or rejecting a single proposal. Several possible solutions can be developed, compared, and voted on within the same decision-making process.
Submitting an initiative does not automatically mean that it will reach the voting phase. First, the initiative must demonstrate that it has sufficient support. Eligible participants can indicate that they support an initiative in its current form. They can also indicate that they would potentially support it if certain changes were made. This allows participants to express a more precise position. Instead of simply rejecting a proposal, a participant can explain what would need to change for the proposal to become acceptable. For example, someone might say that they would support an initiative if a particular paragraph were removed, an additional safeguard were included, or part of the proposal were defined more clearly. The initiators can review these suggestions and decide whether to revise their proposal. They are not required to accept every suggestion. They remain responsible for the content of their initiative. When they believe that a proposed change would improve the initiative, they can incorporate it. When they disagree, they can leave the proposal unchanged. A participant whose suggestion is not adopted can also create a competing initiative containing their preferred alternative. The system therefore does not depend on a moderator deciding which proposal is correct or which compromise should be adopted. The participants themselves develop alternatives, collect support, and decide which proposals should proceed.
Every issue passes through 4 phases: admission, discussion, verification, and voting. Each phase has a specific purpose. The duration of each phase, the required support thresholds, and other procedural details depend on the policy selected for the issue. The overall process, however, remains the same. After the voting phase has ended and the result has been calculated, the process is finished and the result becomes available. Let us look at each phase in turn.
When a new initiative opens a new issue, the issue begins in the admission phase. The purpose of admission is to determine whether there is enough initial interest for the issue to proceed. Before the admission deadline, at least one initiative must reach the required level of potential support. This requirement is sometimes called an admission quorum. The quorum prevents every newly submitted proposal from automatically passing through the entire decision-making process, even when almost nobody is interested in it. When at least one initiative reaches the required support threshold before the admission deadline, the issue moves into the discussion phase. When no initiative reaches the threshold by that deadline, the issue does not proceed to a full discussion and vote. During admission, The initiators can revise their proposals. They can respond to suggestions, clarify unclear passages, correct problems, and try to gain additional support. Participants can also submit alternative initiatives while the issue is still in admission.
Once the admission requirement has been met, the issue enters the discussion phase. This is the main period for developing and comparing proposals. During discussion, initiators can continue to modify the text of their initiatives. They can respond to criticism, incorporate suggestions, negotiate compromises, or clarify the practical consequences of their proposals. Participants can review the current version of each initiative and decide whether they support it. Because an initiative can change during this phase, participants should not rely only on its title or on an earlier version. They should review the current text and confirm that it still represents their position. Participants can also indicate which changes would be necessary for them to become supporters. New competing initiatives may be introduced during this phase as well. This creates an open development process. A proposal does not have to be perfect when it is first submitted. It can improve through feedback and revision. At the same time, nobody is forced to accept a compromise they consider unacceptable. When substantial disagreement remains, participants can present separate alternatives. The duration of the discussion phase is defined by the policy. Once that duration has elapsed, the issue moves into verification.
During verification, the texts of the existing initiatives are frozen. The initiators can no longer modify them. This gives all participants a stable basis for their final evaluation. Before verification, a proposal may have changed several times. During verification, everyone can review the exact wording that may later appear in the vote. This prevents an initiative from being changed at the last moment after it has already collected support. Participants can check whether their support still applies to the final version. They may withdraw their support when the initiative no longer reflects their position. It is still possible to introduce an alternative initiative during verification. This provides a safeguard when an initiative was changed near the end of the discussion phase in a way that other participants consider unacceptable. However, an initiative introduced during verification cannot be modified after it has been submitted. The duration of the verification phase is defined by the applicable policy. Once that duration has elapsed, the issue moves into voting.
Not every initiative automatically qualifies for voting. To appear on the ballot, an initiative must reach the required level of support. This qualification threshold ensures that the final vote focuses on proposals that have demonstrated a meaningful level of interest. During voting, eligible participants can evaluate the initiatives that have qualified. They can express support for or opposition to individual initiatives. When several initiatives are available, participants can also rank them according to their preferences. This provides more information than a system in which participants can select only one option. For example, a participant might prefer Initiative A, consider Initiative B an acceptable alternative, and reject Initiative C. The preference order allows the voting system to take these distinctions into account. Participants should therefore evaluate each initiative on its own merits and consider how it compares with the available alternatives. While voting is in progress, the votes that have already been cast are not published. Participants cannot see a live intermediate result. This is intended to reduce tactical voting based on temporary vote counts. Participants should vote according to their actual preferences rather than reacting to an incomplete result. The duration of the voting phase is defined by the policy. Once that duration has elapsed, voting ends, and the result is calculated.
After the voting phase has ended and the result has been calculated, the decision-making process is finished. The result shows which initiative, if any, has been accepted. It is also possible for no initiative to be accepted. An initiative may fail because it did not receive sufficient approval, because another initiative was preferred, or because it did not meet the applicable decision requirements. The relevant voting data is published together with the result. This transparency allows participants to review the result and verify how it was determined. The completed issue remains documented in the system. Participants can review the initiatives, the development process, the vote, and the final result. This creates a transparent record of how the decision was developed and made.
We have now seen how an issue moves through the decision-making process. Before summarizing the complete process, it is useful to explain where issues are located within the system and who is eligible to participate in them. Liquid feedback can be divided into organizational units. An organizational unit represents a particular group of eligible participants. It might correspond to a local branch, a regional organization, or a combination of several branches. A participant may be eligible in more than one organizational unit. Within each organizational unit, subject areas divide decisions into different topic domains. Every issue belongs to a subject area within an organizational unit. The organizational unit determines who is eligible to participate. The subject area indicates the domain to which the issue belongs. These structures do not change the four-phase process. They determine the organizational context in which that process takes place.
Liquid feedback also allows participants to delegate their influence to people they trust. Delegation can affect which issues proceed, which initiatives gain support, and how votes are cast. Delegation does not prevent direct participation. Whenever a participant acts personally, that direct action automatically takes precedence over the delegation. This combination of delegation and direct participation is known as liquid democracy, and we explain it in a separate episode.
Let us summarize the complete process. An eligible participant submits a proposal by creating an initiative. When the proposal does not belong to an existing issue, the initiative opens a new issue. When a suitable issue already exists, the participant can add the initiative as a competing proposal.
The issue begins in admission. Before the admission deadline, at least one initiative must collect enough potential support for the issue to proceed. When the admission requirement is met, the issue enters discussion.
During discussion, initiatives can be revised, suggestions can be considered, support can change, and alternative initiatives can be introduced. Once the discussion phase has reached the end of its defined duration, the issue enters verification.
During verification, the proposal texts are frozen. Participants can review the final wording and reconsider their support. Once the verification phase has reached the end of its defined duration, the issue enters voting.
Only initiatives that meet the required support threshold qualify for the vote. Participants can evaluate the proposals, vote for or against them, and rank competing initiatives according to their preferences. Votes remain unpublished while voting is in progress. Once the voting phase has ended, the result is calculated and the relevant voting data becomes available for review. The decision-making process is then finished.
This concludes our introduction to how liquid feedback works. Thank you for listening. In the next episode, we will look at how liquid democracy works in liquid feedback, how delegation complements direct participation, and how delegated influence operates throughout the decision-making process.